You're listening to Teracota Chronicles, where broken pieces find their way back to wholeness. And if you stay with me, you'll hear how I was broken, how I survived it all, and how I rebuilt my life beyond everything I was told I couldn't have. This isn't a sermon, it's a story, a living journal of how I got here. And maybe somewhere in it, you'll find your way back to yourself too. There comes a point in life where everything feels like it could go one way or another. A decision, a moment, a fork in the road. And most of us don't even realize how powerful those moments actually are because we think life is just happening to us. But I've come to understand this truth that life, it shifts at the point of decision. And I've lived this. The moment when my family broke apart, when my mom decided she didn't want to be married anymore and she was leaving, I had a choice to decide whether I would stay or go. That wasn't just a life event. That was a crossroad. And it's the first one I can point to and say, there it is. Because when I chose to go with her, I didn't just change houses, I changed timelines. Now, I didn't have language for that back then, but today I see it clearly because everything that came after that decision was different. The new school I went to, the people I met, the Christian identity I started forming, the marriage that followed, that version of my life only existed because of that choice. But let's take it back for a moment, because up until I reached the point of deciding whether to stay or go, and let me be clear, my mother never intended for me to choose. She wanted me to stay, but I had come of age. I was turning 18 that fall, and for the first time on some level, I decided the decision was mine. But up until that point, my life, it revolved around my mother's decisions. There were crossroads I didn't get to choose. They were chosen for me. They weren't mine to make. And yet they still shaped everything about my life. Not knowing my real father created a pattern in how I would choose relationships in this life. And side note, my mother never expected me to learn the truth about my father. And I'm not talking about the one that I met at 21. Oh, my story is deep. I learned 26 years later, it wasn't him. You know, some secrets we bury, they still find their way to the surface. And here's what I have come to learn and understand about these crossroads. Every time you reach a crossroad, there are multiple versions of your life available to you. The one where you stay, the one where you go, the one where you choose safety, the one where you choose growth. And whichever one you choose becomes the life you experience. Let that sink in. And there's actually a movie that shows this perfectly. It's called Look Both Ways. And I know there are multiple movies, but this is the one that I gained some of this insight with. And this is a spoiler alert. There's a scene in this movie where the main character, Natalie, played by Lily Reinhardt, is about to graduate college. She's in the bathroom with her best friend, Kara, who is played by Aisha D, and she's about to take a pregnancy test. And in that moment, the film splits into two versions of what her life can become, two completely different paths. In one version, the test is positive and she's pregnant and her life moves in one direction. Her dreams, they don't disappear, but they do shift. Now, when I first saw this film, it didn't register. It didn't become a revelation until many years later when I watched it again with a different mindset, an awakened mindset. This time I realized, wow, this is how life works. Not just in the movies, right? But in real life. That moment when I chose to leave with my mother instead of staying, that was my look both ways moment. That was the point where my life split into the version I would live and the version I would never live. And we've all had these moments. You've had moments where you look back and think, if I had just chosen differently, and you can almost see it, how your life would have played out another way. That's not your imagination. That's called awareness. Awareness of the path that you didn't take. And I've felt that thinking about the life I would have lived if I'd stayed. Honestly, I don't think I would be here today of sound mind. Now, in some cases, there are paths that will unfold whether you choose them now or later. And I'm realizing that these crossroads aren't just events or situations, but you can come to crossroads with people in your life. I'm a huge Korean drama fan. I love these films, and I think that they're so honest and very, very pure in their storytelling. And I just completed one called The Interest of Love. Now, I won't go into the story background because it is still playing on Netflix. Very good story. But it does show how there are also crossroads, even as it comes to relationships and individuals in our lives. And what I learned from watching this film is that it takes courage. There are some outcomes that have a way of circling back around. No matter how many detours you take, no matter how many timelines you create, certain people, certain lessons, certain truths are going to find their way back to you. I've seen it in my own life. The delay in learning the truth about my father wasn't absence, it was a detour that shaped how I chose love or even understood myself until the moment I was ready to see it clearly. Because a detour is just that, a detour. It reroutes you back to the path you were always on. It may take longer. It may look different. It may feel like you've gone completely off course, but it doesn't erase what is meant for you. What about free will, you're asking? Sure, you absolutely have free will. You can choose to take the detour. You can take the longer road. You can delay what's waiting for you and still find yourself back in the same place on a different day. The difference is who you are when you get there. Will you still be the one trying to escape, or will you be the one who observes, who learns, who grows, and finally graduates the lesson so that it doesn't have to repeat itself again? It takes courage to do that. And here's another truth that I've learned. And this is the good news. You're always being guided. There's a version of you that already knows, a version that has already lived through the decisions you face, already reached the outcome, and is constantly guiding you toward the highest version of your life. And the only way you hear that guidance is when you slow down enough to listen. Not to fear, not to pressure from other people, not to what everybody else is telling you to do, but to that quiet voice, that quiet knowing that's inside of you, called intuition. Some call it God's voice, some call it instinct, or simply a knowing. But every crossroad is an opportunity, not just to choose, but to choose differently. And the more you start paying attention to that intuition, it becomes easier. You begin to recognize the feeling of the right decision, not because someone told you, but it's because something in you already knows, this is it. This is the move I'm to make. And when you start moving and living like that, life does not seem random anymore. It feels intentional. It feels guided. It feels like you're finally working with something instead of just reacting to everything. And looking back now, I can see that my life didn't just change over time. It changed the moment I decided. And that's the truth. I've taken responsibility for my choices instead of handing them over to religion or to chance or anything that disconnects me from my own knowing, my own intuitive self. Because the moment I did, I stopped waiting for my life to happen to me, and I began to choose it. And once you get to that point and you see the outcome, you can't unsee it. I'm going to leave you with this because I've said a lot, but I don't want the point to be missed. This is about crossroads. This is about choice. There are multiple versions of your life available to you, and the one you live is the one you choose. And this can happen over and over, detour after detour after detour, until you finally choose the path that leads you back to yourself, your higher self. So the question becomes, how many crossroads will it take before you choose your path? You've been listening to Teracota Chronicles, and if something in my story resonated with you, if it mirrored your life, your questions, or your own awakening, I hope it reminds you you are not alone. I'm not here to perform or present a polished version of myself. What I'm offering is honesty. And if you choose to stay with me, this story is still unfolding. I'll return with the next part. Be open, be well, and be at peace until we meet again.